A boot slipped on loose rock. A body tumbled over the edge. Stones cracked under the weight, then the whole shelf gave way. A scream cut short. Dust filled the air at the bottom of the canyon. 40 feet down, a leg was pinned under a slab of red sandstone the size of a refrigerator. Blood ran down a torn calf. A black braid was matted with grit. 2 dark eyes opened, focused, and locked onto a shadow at the rim above. The shadow moved. It became a man. Leather jacket, heavy boots, a motorcycle helmet under one arm. He started climbing down, fast, sure-footed. The girl pinned under that slab of stone was named Yuma Redhawk. She was 19, and she had never seen this man before in her life. What she said when he finally reached her would change both their lives. "Stay with me on this one." He didn't speak yet. He just kept moving. Down the rim, hand over hand, finding holds in the cracks. His boots hit the canyon floor and he was already pulling things from his pack. A roll of bandages. A small black case. A water bottle. He set them down a few feet from her and finally looked at her face. "Where are you hurt?" he asked. She didn't answer. Her jaw was clenched so tight the muscles were trembling. She had decided already, the moment she saw him at the rim, that she was not going to give him anything. Not a word. Not a sound. Nothing. He didn't push. He looked at her leg. He looked at the slab of sandstone across her thigh. He started reading the situation. Where the rock was pinching. Where the blood was coming from. Whether the bone was broken or just trapped. "I need to slide a strap under your knee," he said. "It's going to hurt. I'm telling you so you know." She still didn't answer. He waited a beat, then went to work. "Now here's what you need to know about Yuma Redhawk before this goes any further." She had grown up on a stretch of land her grandfather called Old Bear Canyon. Not on any map by that name. Just the name her family used. Her grandfather had walked her along the rim when she was 4 years old and pointed out the carvings on the lower walls. Spirals. Handprints. A row of figures with spears. They had been there for hundreds of years. They were her family's history. Her tribe's history. And they were the reason she was down in that canyon now. 3 months earlier, the tribal council had heard that a mining company wanted access rights to the land bordering the canyon. The council needed proof. Photographs. Evidence that the canyon walls held artifacts that protected the land under federal law. Yuma had volunteered. She knew the canyon better than anyone her age. She had her camera. She had a backpack of supplies. She had a notebook full of locations passed down from her grandmother. She did not have a partner. That was her own choice. Her brother had wanted to come. Her cousin had offered. She had told them no. She said she could do it faster alone. She said she would call when she reached the floor. Now she was on the floor, and she had not called anyone. Her phone was cracked across the screen, and the only signal in this part of the canyon was 0 bars. She had known that. She had planned for it. She had a satellite messenger in her pack that could send coordinates to her brother. The pack was 30 feet away from her, half buried under loose rock. The man kneeling next to her did not know any of this. He had not asked. He was not asking now. He was only working. "Strap is going around your leg," he said. "Tighten it slow. You ready?" She still gave him nothing. He pulled the strap. The pressure climbed up her calf and she bit down on the inside of her cheek hard enough to taste copper. She did not cry out. He glanced at her face once, saw what she was doing, and went back to work without a word. His name was Cole Bishop, 41 years old. He had been riding alone across the Southwest for 9 days. He was on a stretch of dirt road 2 miles above the canyon when he heard the sound. A long, dry crack, like something splitting in half. Then the rumble. Then silence. He had stopped his bike. He had listened. He had ridden along the rim until he saw the dust rising. He had pulled off, walked to the edge, and looked down. That is when he saw her. He had not hesitated. He had grabbed his medical kit, his water, and a coil of climbing rope he kept strapped to the rear rack, and he had started down. 12 years as a combat corpsman in the Marine Corps had given him a particular relationship with the sound of falling rock. He did not assume anyone was alive at the bottom. He went anyway. Now he was wrapping her calf with a pressure bandage and watching the blood as it soaked through the gauze. Bright red. Steady but not pulsing. That was a good sign. It meant no major artery. It meant she had time. He looked at the slab. He looked at her. He let out a slow breath. "This rock is not coming off you with 2 hands," he said. "I'm going to need to figure something out." That is when she finally spoke. She turned her head toward him. Her voice was low, steady, almost flat. "Make it quick, biker. I won't scream." He stopped. The roll of gauze in his hand froze in the air. He looked at her, really looked at her this time, and he understood in 1 second what she had been bracing for from the moment she saw him at the rim. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "I'm not here to hurt you." She didn't blink. "I'm here to get you out from under that rock." She still didn't blink. "My name is Cole. I was a corpsman in the Marine Corps. I have a med kit, a satellite messenger, and rope. The beacon's already been pinged. People are coming. Your job right now is to stay still and let me work. Can you do that?" She did not answer, but her jaw unclenched. Just a little. Just enough. He went back to the bandage. He did not look at her face for a long time after that. He gave her the dignity of not watching her change her mind about him. He pulled the satellite messenger out of his jacket and pressed the SOS button. He waited for the green light. He showed her the screen so she could see it. "Confirmed," he said. "They have our position. Closest ground unit is in Holbrook. They'll need 3 to 4 hours. Helicopter can't land in here at night. Wind is too unpredictable in the canyon." He set the messenger down where she could see it. He didn't put it back in his jacket. He wanted her to know it was real. He wanted her to know he wasn't lying. Then he turned his attention back to the slab. He walked around it 3 times. He pressed against it from every angle. He tried lifting from the downhill side. He tried wedging a smaller stone underneath. The slab didn't move. It was too big. It was too heavy. He needed leverage. He needed a long bar and a fulcrum, and right now he had neither. He came back to her. He sat down on the dirt next to her hip. He pulled out a water bottle and held it where she could see it. "You need to drink. Slow sips. Can you lift your head?" She lifted her head. He held the bottle to her lips. She drank. Her eyes never left his. When she was done, she said, "What do you want?" Not a question. A demand. "I want to get you out of here without you bleeding to death," he said. "That's what I want." "Why?" He thought about that for a second. "Because that's what you do," he said. "You see somebody pinned under a rock, you get them out from under it. There's no other reason." She watched him. She was still searching for the lie. He let her search. The sun was starting to drop toward the rim. The shadows on the canyon floor were getting longer. He glanced up at the sky and his face tightened. Night came fast in places like this. The temperature would drop 40 degrees in an hour. He needed to think about that. He stood up and started gathering brush. Dry grass. A few sticks. Anything that would burn. He dragged a fallen branch over and laid it down a few feet from her. He pulled a lighter from his pocket. "I'm going to start a fire," he said. "Right here. Where you can see it. Where it can warm you. The smoke will help the rescue find us at first light if for some reason the beacon doesn't hold." He got the fire going on the second try. He fed it slowly. He kept it small. The flames climbed up the sticks and the dry brush caught and crackled and the light spread across the canyon floor. Yuma watched the fire. She watched him. He sat down on a rock a few feet from her and pulled a strip of dried meat from his pack. He bit into it. He chewed slowly. He held a piece out to her. "Hungry?" She didn't answer for a moment. Then she nodded just barely. He tore off a piece and fed it to her. She chewed. She swallowed. He gave her another sip of water. "Thank you," she said. It was the first soft word she had given him. "Don't thank me yet," he said. "We're not out of this canyon." She closed her eyes for a moment. The pain was still there. The slab was still on her leg. But the bleeding was controlled. Her head was no longer spinning. The fire was warming her face. The man with the leather jacket and the heavy boots was sitting on a rock, eating dried meat, watching the fire, occasionally glancing at her bandage to check the soak-through. He was not what she had thought he was. He was not even close. She let her head rest back against the dirt. She watched the smoke curl up toward the strip of sky between the canyon walls. She watched a star appear. Then another. The pain in her leg was a steady throb now. Manageable. Tolerable. "Cole," she said. "Yeah. My name is Yuma." He nodded. He didn't smile. He didn't make a thing of it. "Yuma," he repeated. "Good to meet you." She almost laughed. It would have hurt too much to actually laugh, so she just let her mouth move into something that wasn't a laugh but wasn't nothing either. The fire crackled. The stars were coming out one by one. The pain in her leg was real, but the bleeding was controlled, and the rescue was coming, and the man sitting on the rock was not what she had thought he was. For the first time since she had hit the canyon floor, she let her shoulders unclench. She thought maybe this is okay. She thought maybe this is going to be okay. That is when they heard the first engine. It was far away at first. Just a low buzz coming from somewhere up the canyon. Could have been wind. Could have been nothing. Then it got louder. Then there were 3 of them. Cole was on his feet before Yuma understood what she was hearing. He moved to the edge of the firelight and stared up the canyon, into the dark, where the sound was coming from. The engines were not on the rim. They were on the canyon floor, coming up the dry wash. The service road that ran along the bottom of the canyon for the first half-mile, then dead-ended at a wall. That was the road they were on. Cole's whole posture changed. His shoulders dropped. His weight shifted forward. His hands settled at his sides and stopped moving. Yuma had never seen a man go that still that fast. "Cole," she said. "Don't move. Cole." "I said don't move. Quiet." The headlights came around the bend. 3 motorcycles. Bigger than Cole's. Heavier. Loud pipes. They pulled up in a half-circle around the fire and the engines died one by one. 3 men. They didn't get off their bikes right away. They just sat there, looking. The lead one had a black bandana tied around his face. The second had a long beard and tattoos crawling up the side of his neck. The third was younger and didn't have a face covering at all, which somehow made him the most frightening of the 3. He was smiling. Cole stood between them and Yuma. He had not pulled a weapon. He didn't appear to have one. His hands were open. "Evening," Cole said. The lead one pulled the bandana down off his face. He looked at the fire. He looked at Yuma pinned under the slab. He looked at Cole. "You alone out here?" the lead one said. "Help is on the way," Cole said. "Beacon's been pinged. Sheriff is 40 minutes out." The lead one smiled. It was a thin smile. Not friendly. "Beacons don't always work, friend." This one did. The 3 men looked at each other. The smiling one in the back let out a small laugh. "You know where you are?" the lead one said. "I have an idea." "You don't, actually. This canyon. This stretch right here. We use it for things. We don't like people seeing us use it." Cole did not answer. He did not move. Yuma understood. She understood in 1 second exactly what was happening. These men were not lost. They had not stumbled in. They had a route through this canyon for whatever they were moving, and Cole and Yuma had seen them. The math was simple. The math was old as the world. No witnesses. The lead one swung his leg off the bike and stepped down onto the dirt. The other 2 followed. They were not in a hurry. They were not worried about her. She was pinned. They were not worried about Cole. He was one man. He was older. He was unarmed. That was their first mistake. Cole took one step toward them. Just one. He spoke quietly. "You can get back on those bikes and ride out the way you came in," he said. "Nobody saw your faces yet. Nobody has to." The smiling one laughed again. The lead one took a step closer. He pulled a folding knife from his belt and opened it. He didn't point it at Cole. He just held it, letting Cole see it. "Friend," the lead one said, "you don't seem to understand the situation." "I understand it," Cole said. "Then move." "I'm not going to do that." The lead one looked at the bearded one. The bearded one nodded. They moved together. What happened in the next few seconds was so fast that Yuma later said she could not put it in order. Cole was standing in one place and then he was not. The lead one was lunging with the knife, and then the lead one was on the ground with his arm bent backward at an angle that was wrong. The bearded one was swinging a fist, and then the bearded one was sitting down hard with his hand to his throat, making a sound like something stuck in a drain pipe. The smiling one was reaching for something at his belt, and then Cole was on him with a knee in his chest and a forearm across his face. It was over in 15 seconds. 3 men on the ground. None of them dead. All of them done. Cole stood up. His breathing was a little faster. That was the only sign anything had happened. He looked at the lead one's knife on the dirt and he picked it up and he closed it and he put it in his back pocket. He turned to look at Yuma. She was staring at him. Her mouth was slightly open. She had not made a sound through any of it. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "If you're still with me on this story, do me one favor. Hit that subscribe button. We tell stories like this every week, and the only way the channel keeps going is if you stay around." Now back to the canyon, because what came next is the reason this story exists. Cole walked back to the lead one, who was groaning on his side. He pulled a roll of zip ties from his jacket pocket. He went to work. While he tied them, he spoke to her without looking up. "Yuma, I need you to listen to me." "Okay. There were 3 of them tonight. There's going to be more before the sheriff gets here. They came in for a reason. They were meeting somebody." She felt the cold come back into her chest. "How do you know that?" she said. "Because nobody rides 3 across into a dead-end canyon at sunset for fun." He finished with the zip ties. He stood up. He walked to the lead one's bike and pulled the saddlebag open. Inside were 2 black duffel bags. He didn't open them. He didn't need to. He looked at her. "They're coming back," he said. He didn't waste a second. He dragged the 3 of them, one at a time, behind the slab of sandstone that was pinning her leg. He kept them on their sides so they wouldn't choke. He left them tied. He did not gag them. He wanted them able to breathe. He was not a cruel man. Even now. Then he came back to Yuma. "How much longer for the sheriff?" she said. 25 minutes at best." "Cole." "I know." He knelt down next to her. He started moving his medical kit closer. He pulled out a syringe. He held it where she could see it. "Lidocaine. It's a local. It won't put you out, but it'll dull the leg." "Why?" "Because I'm going to get that rock off you. You said you couldn't lift it." "I'm not going to lift it. I'm going to roll it. There's a difference. But I need you ready to move when it goes." She looked at the slab. She looked at her leg. She looked at him. "Do it," she said. He gave her the injection. He waited 2 minutes. Then he stood up and walked over to the canyon wall and started pulling at something. A long, dead pine branch wedged between 2 rocks. He pulled it free and dragged it back. It was 8 feet, long and as thick as her arm. He set it down next to the slab. He pulled a smaller rock over and wedged it against the downhill side of the slab. A fulcrum. Then he set the long branch under the edge of the slab, on top of the smaller rock. A lever. Yuma watched him work. She had never seen anyone build a tool out of nothing that fast. "When I push," he said, "the rock is going to roll off you. You need to drag yourself backward as soon as the pressure lifts. Use your arms. Don't try to stand. Just slide." "Got it." I might not be able to hold it long. So when I say go, you go. Got it. He set his weight on the long end of the branch. He took a deep breath. That is when they heard the second wave of engines. Coming down the same wash. Same loud pipes. 2 of them this time. Headlights bouncing. Cole did not stop. Cole did not even look up. Yuma. Yeah. On 3. 1, 2, 3. He threw his entire body weight onto the branch. The slab groaned. The branch bent. For a second nothing happened. Then the slab tipped. It rolled an inch. Then another. Then it lifted off her thigh and rolled with a heavy thud onto its side. She dragged herself backward. Hands clawing at the dirt. Bad leg trailing. She got 6 feet clear before the branch snapped under Cole's weight and the slab settled back where her leg had been a second earlier. She was free. She was free, and the headlights were almost on them. Cole moved fast now. He grabbed her under the arms and dragged her behind a boulder near the canyon wall. He pulled a tarp from his pack and threw it over her. He pushed his medical kit and his satellite messenger under the tarp with her. If I don't come back, he said. Press the messenger again. 2 times. That's the panic signal. Cole. I'll come back. Cole. Stay quiet. He stood up. He walked back toward the fire. The 2 new motorcycles were pulling up. 2 men. Bigger than the first 3. Both of them looking around, confused because their friends weren't standing. Where's Reyes? One of them called. Cole didn't answer. The 2 men shut off their engines. They stepped off. They were not looking at Cole. They were looking past him, at the slab, at the fire, at the bikes parked in a half circle. Reyes. One of them pulled a pistol from his jacket. Not a knife this time. A gun. Yuma, under the tarp, saw the muzzle come up. She saw the man take aim at Cole. She saw Cole standing with his hands open, talking, buying seconds. She did the only thing she could do. She pressed the messenger panic button. 2 times. Then she rolled out from under the tarp. She didn't know what she was going to do. She had no plan. She just knew she was not going to lie there while the only man who had ever stopped to help her in the middle of nowhere got shot through the chest. She picked up a fist-sized chunk of red sandstone in her right hand. The stone that had pinned her leg for 2 hours. The stone she should have hated. She hefted it and threw it as hard as she could from 20 feet away. It hit the man with the pistol on the side of the jaw. He went down. The other one turned toward her, and that was the second he should not have spent. Because Cole was on him before he could react. 1 step. A grab. A twist. The man hit the ground face first. Cole pulled the pistol from the first one's hand. He put it on the ground. He stepped on it. He looked at her. You threw a rock, he said. I threw a rock. He almost smiled. He didn't quite, but almost. That is when the helicopter came in over the rim. The wind from its blades blasted dust across the canyon floor. The fire flattened. A spotlight swept over the slab, over the bikes, over Yuma sitting on the dirt with her legs straight out and her hands still half open from throwing the stone. The voice from the loudspeaker said, "Stay where you are. Help is here." She started to laugh. It hurt. She laughed anyway. The helicopter could not land in the canyon. The pilot put it down on the rim. A 6-person ground team came down on ropes. They had stretchers. They had supplies. They had a deputy from the county sheriff's office and 2 paramedics and a search and rescue medic who took one look at Cole's bandage work and said, out loud, "Whoever did this knew what they were doing." Cole stayed back. He let them work. He watched them load Yuma onto a stretcher. He answered the deputy's questions in short sentences. Yes, those 5 men had shown up. Yes, 2 pulled weapons. No, he was not law enforcement. No, he did not want to press charges personally. He just wanted the girl to be okay. When they lifted Yuma onto the stretcher, she reached out and grabbed his sleeve. "Are you coming with me? They don't usually let strangers on the rope line." "You're not a stranger." He looked at her. He patted her hand. He stepped back. "They'll take good care of you. "I'll be at the hospital." She didn't believe him. She had spent enough hours in that canyon studying his face to know when he was choosing his words carefully. He was not lying. He was just not promising. They lifted her up the rim on the rope. The wind from the blades was loud. She watched him get smaller below her. He stood next to the slab of red sandstone that had pinned her leg for 2 hours. He raised one hand. He held it up until she was over the rim and out of the canyon. She passed out before they loaded her into the helicopter. When she woke up, she was in a hospital bed. Her brother was in the chair next to her. Her grandmother was in the other chair. Her mother was on the phone in the hallway. A nurse asked her how she was feeling. The doctor told her she was going to keep her leg. She asked about Cole. Her brother said, "Who?" She asked again. They didn't know. Nobody had given them the name of the man who had pulled her out. The deputy's report listed him only as civilian rescuer, unidentified, declined to provide further statement, departed scene. He had given them his name and his service record, and then he had gotten on his bike and ridden out before anyone could ask anything else. Yuma stared at the ceiling for a long time after that. Her grandmother put a hand on her arm. Her grandmother did not ask any questions. She just sat there. 2 weeks later, Yuma was on crutches. 3 weeks later, she was walking with a cane. 5 weeks later, the cane was gone, and she was sitting on the porch of her grandmother's house, watching the sun set over the same canyon she had fallen into. Her brother came out and sat down next to her. He had something in his hand. A small leather pouch. "This came in the mail today. No return address. Just your name." She opened it. Inside was her camera. The one that had been in her backpack 30 feet from where she fell. The one she had assumed was buried under the rock forever. There was a single photograph clipped to the strap. A picture of the canyon at dawn. Her petroglyphs. Her family's history. Photographed from the bottom of the wall, looking up. Underneath the photograph was a folded piece of paper with 2 lines on it. "Your camera was 20 feet from where I found you. I thought you would want these. The mining company will not get this canyon. Not now. Not ever. See." She held the photograph for a long time. Her brother said, "Who's C?" She didn't answer. She just smiled. 3 months later, the Tribal Council won the federal protection ruling on Old Bear Canyon. The petroglyphs Yuma had photographed were entered into the Federal Register. The mining company's access bid was denied. The canyon was placed under permanent cultural protection. Yuma's name was on the document. So was her grandfather's, her grandmother's, her great-great-grandmother's. 6 generations. The document was signed on a Tuesday. That same Tuesday, a man on a motorcycle pulled into the parking lot of a small diner outside of Holbrook. He was wearing a leather jacket. He had a helmet under one arm. He walked inside and sat at the counter and ordered coffee. The woman in the booth by the window stood up. She was leaning a little on her right side. She had a slight limp. She had a long black braid down her back. She walked over and sat down on the stool next to him. He did not look surprised. He looked like he had been waiting. "How did you find me?" he asked. "You sent me a camera with no return address and no name. But you used my tribe's name in your note. I asked the elders. The elders asked their cousins. Their cousins asked the riders. The riders said there was a Marine who passed through every spring on the same route. Same diner. Same time of year." He almost smiled. He didn't quite, but almost. "You should have screamed," he said. "I told you I wouldn't." "I know. Cole. Yeah. I want to thank you properly for what you did in that canyon." He looked at her for a long second. "You already did," he said. "You didn't scream." She put her hand over his on the counter. The waitress came over with the coffee. Outside, the sun was setting over the canyon she had been pulled out of. The same canyon her family had named. The same canyon she had carried with her for 6 weeks. The same canyon she would walk into one day with the man sitting next to her, to show him the petroglyphs in the daylight. For the first time in her life, she was glad she had fallen.